I've been a Porsche owner for decades, and I've been aware of the stereotype around Porsche owners, and I blame Hollywood for this. Since the first Porsche I've owned, I've been hearing the joke about what's the difference between a Porsche and a pickle. A pickle has the pricks on the outside. Just comes with the territory. These are such a beautiful, elegant, highly engineered car, amazing driving machines. How did they and their owners end up with such a bad rap? Every sports car has a bit of a stereotype, from your midlife crisis Corvettes to your look-at-me Italian cars. Most sports cars are incredible machines though, and the people that buy them are buying them for the machine they are. They are true car people, they have a passion for these vehicles, and they genuinely love the machine. The problem comes when people buy them for the aura, for the peripheral details, such as, a look-at-me car. It's an attention getter, or they're buying it to replace their ex-wife, or they're just trying to show off how much money they make, and they know nothing about the machine itself. They never get over 65 mile an hour, but they drive in the left lane just to further be an asshole. And that's how we end up with stereotypes of different cars, and those of course are propagated by Hollywood to add into and become part of our pop culture. And for Porsches, there are movies like Le Mans, where it shows Steve McQueen, one of the coolest people ever, to drive a 917 on the track, but he's got his little 911 that he drives around town day to day. However, that movie was also made in 1971. It's been a while. Since most of the Porsche models that most of us are familiar with start with a 9, this is my list of the 9 top movies where Porsche owners are featured as villains. Number 9, and the Porsche is not actually shown, but it's the original Terminator, and Stan Morsky is the Porsche-owning prick in this. Now, he's a prick because Sarah Connor and her roommate are checking voicemail after they've gotten all ready for their Friday night dates, and there's a message from Stan saying something came up, can't make it, and he just kind of blows her off. He makes a comment about, so what if he drives a Porsche? It's Friday night, for Christ's sakes, whatever. So that's the final cut. Now, according to Google, there was an earlier version where it actually was going to show Stan and his, I think, silver Porsche at the time, and it was going to portray him as egotistical, couldn't talk about anything else but his money, something that we unfortunately nowadays associate with a lot of Porsche owners. Number 8, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, features a character named Lee. And Lee is a spoiled brat, and not only that, but he and a young Amber Waves, Julianne Moore, they get together and they frame Steve Buscemi's character and cause him to lose his scholarship. So Steve ends up animating his mummy and whatever else, and they pay the price for it. There's only a real short clip where it shows the 911 that's driven by the character Lee. Number 7, War Dogs. David and Efraim are the 2 guys that in real life swindled the US government and were convicted of fraud. When they first hit it big with their Beretta deal, I believe, they get matching 911s. Plate on one says guns, the plate on the other says and ammo, because they were arms dealers, and that's what they were working with to fraud the US government. So unethical dealings with Uncle Sam is a great way to be able to afford a Porsche. Unfortunately for them, it was also a great way to end up in prison. Number 6 on the list is one of my favorite movies of all time, Old School, with Frank the Tank as my post-divorce role model, right? Well, in that movie, Mitch, after he loses his slutty wife to the gangbang, ends up meeting Nicole, and she has a boyfriend, Mark. Anyway, Mark is a grabby scumbag that gets caught trying to hook up with one of the caterer gals in the bathroom during a party when Nicole is downstairs. Mitch busts him, and Mark later lies and says that it was Mitch that was trying to hook up with the catering girl. So just a prick in general, ends up getting busted later. As Nicole says, she caught him red-handed cheating, and it wasn't pretty. So at the very end of the movie, it shows Mark driving his red 911, and he reaches for something, and when he does, he goes off the road, off this bridge, and he lands on Dean Pritchard below, who's also a prick in the movie, and kills him too. Number 5, Pain and Gain, our second movie that was based on real life. And the real guy, Daniel Lugo, was a fitness trainer, and he decided that he wanted to have it all. So he gets a couple roidhead buddies of his, and they all get together and they take a guy hostage, one of the rich clients hostage from the gym, and they extort him for all this money. They try to kill him, but they fuck that up too. They do end up killing 2 other people. After Lugo cashes in on their hostage, he goes out and buys a 930 slant nose turbo convertible, which is a gorgeous car. And that's because he's a doer. And although Daniel Lugo believed in fitness, the state of Florida believed in the death penalty, and that's what he got for the murders. Number 4 is the movie Hannibal, and in it, Paul Krendler is a scumbag FBI agent who's taking bribes from Mason, this guy that wants to catch Hannibal and feed him to his bloodthirsty hogs. So Paul is taking bribes. He's also a super prick to Clarice in the movie, and even when he's cruised up to his lake house in his silver Boxster, and he's inside, and Hannibal has cut the top of his skull off right before he takes it off and feeds him part of his own brains, Paul is still being a dick to Clarice and talking about DC filled with corn-pone pussy or something. Number 3 is the second Arnie classic in this list, and in this one, he has more than the 16 lines he had for Terminator. In Commando, one of the bad guys is named Sully, and he's kind of a little scumbag with a cheap suit. He starts showing his character by stuffing some dollars in Arnold's pocket and says, have a few beers when you're there, that'll give us more time with your daughter, who is a very young Alyssa Milano, about 12 years old at the time. That's his first scumbag move. Then he hits on the female character in it in the parking garage, and when she says no, he says, you fucking whore. And then he hops in his yellow 911 as Arnold and the gal are chasing him on the curves outside of town, right before it crashes, and after the crash, you see that it's got a whale tail, but Sully doesn't need to worry about the 911 tail, he needs to worry about gravity. Our next villain is the number 2 movie, which is one of the funniest movies out there, Office Space, and it's driven by Bill Lumbergh. Now, Bill isn't some kind of psychopathic killer, he's the boss everybody loves to hate. He comes by with his dry, annoying tone, trying to be your buddy, but just being a dick. Comes in at 5 on a Friday and tells you gotta work Saturday and Sunday. Nobody likes this guy. He's got his blue 911, which is a gorgeous car. He parks it in his reserved space, and he takes a few steps, turns around to stare at it. Now, granted, a lot of us car people, yes, we may turn around and just take one look at our car and appreciate how beautiful they are, but he overdoes it a little bit. And when Peter ends up taking his parking space, he quickly takes the handicap space next to it and gets his car towed where they rip the bumper off. Not all villains wear black and carry weapons. Some wear suspenders and carry coffee cups. And the number 1 on our list is Scarface. Tony Montana is one of the most deranged villains in movie history. When he first starts making it big, he goes out and buys a Porsche 928, which is the only V8 in our list. Everything else is the flat 6. There's not a ton of screen time for this flagship Porsche from years ago, but it does make it in there. As the movie goes on, Tony basically ends up blinded by a Colombian blizzard, and even though the globe says the world is yours, yeah, it's only his for a little while until he gets a serious case of lead poisoning by the assassins that invade his mansion. Hope you enjoyed my list of the 9 top Porsche-owning movie villains, and if there's anything else that I missed, please feel free to comment below and let me know. And other than that, keep it between the lines. Subscribe to my YouTube channel below and let's celebrate turning fuel and air into adrenaline.